Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys I'm going to be doing a deck update of my Ancient Gear deck. Now this is a really fun deck that I've been playing around with the new support coming out, that being Ancient Gear Fusion, Ancient Gear Gear Frame, excuse me, and overall, even using the new Fusion card that came out recently, overall the deck is pretty good. It functions fairly well. I'm kind of impressed with how it works now. It's evolved a lot over the course of the last year to some degree. But without further ado, let us get into the deck profile and talk about the update. So originally I profiled this deck when the structure deck came out. I think it was a year ago almost now. But it's so cool to have new support for it. So first off, we run 2 Ancient Gear Golem and 1 Ancient Gear Ultimate Pound. Now, personally, I was of the assumption that it would be best to run a ratio of either 2 Ancient Gear Golem or 1 Ancient Gear, 1 Ancient Gear Ultimate Pound. However, through playtesting, I have found out that it is best to run 2 Ancient Gear Golem and 1 Ancient Gear Pound. More playtesting will need to be done, but this is the ratio I am sticking with currently, along with running the 2 Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon. I like it as a 2-of. It's a good card, and you may say, well, Seto, this is kind of, could it get clunky? Should you run trade-in? What are some things you're thinking about? Well, I found that for the most part, through using the different fusions and that I run in the deck, along with having the ability to easily bring these guys out and tutor them onto the field, and be able to using the Ancient Gear Fusion, that this ratio worked out pretty well. Pound is a pretty good card that I can attack twice per turn, piercing damage, as you guys know, and trample effect. That's what we used to call it back in the day. And Reactor Dragon's not a bad card either. But yeah, this is the ratio I like. I'm so happy I have 2 hollows of the Ancient Gear Golem, though. It may not be the ultimate, but they're still from the Millennium Pack. Not the Millennium Pack, the Lost Millennium from back in the day. But yes, we have that, and they want an Ancient Gear Pound. So that's the ratio I like. You can play around with it, but that's what works for me. Next we have the Stratus S card of the deck. 3 Ancient Gear Wyvern. Helps search out some of your necessity cards that you need. And it's a level 4 to boot, which is kind of nice. So it can help you go for rank 4s. So 3 Wyvern. Next we run 3 Ancient Gear Hound. This is a definite staple as a 3-of. Think of this as like a polymerization on legs with a little bit extra burn damage, I guess. It's a good card to have in the deck, and I like it as a 3-of. Originally, back in the day when I was playing with it last year, I liked it as a 2-of, but quickly I found out that this is definitely a 3-of in the deck, hands down. So 3 Hound. We run 2 Gear Frame. The nice thing about this card is it's a level 4, which works with some other things that you can do in the deck. Do keep that in mind, the ratios of level 4s I'm running, because you're going to see some cards that help you go for rank 4s and help you go for link plays into some decent link monsters that can be helpful for the deck. But 2 Ancient Gear Frame, this is a good way to search out your Ancient Gear Fusion, which is nice. We run 1 Ancient Gear Box. I've seen people run 2 of this. Never run 2 Ancient Gear Box, never. But it allows you to deck thin your deck. And the cool thing is you can use this for fodder. So for example, imagine I add Ancient Gear Frame off Ancient Gear Box, and I can pitch the Gear Box to search for the fusion. That's a little way you can do it. So that's nice. Next we run 2 Gold Gadget and 2 Silver Gadget. Now this is something that's carried over that I've really liked in the deck for all the different plays you can do. Because of the fact of the matter is, it just helps go for link plays, and in addition to that, helps you go for exceed plays. The cool thing about this is, imagine you're going to be setting up for a fusion play, all right? And you want to do something else. You want to go for a link play or something of that nature. Well, you can do things like that by going Gold Gadget, let's say Ancient Gear Frame, pitch a card, search out whatever you want to, mainly the fusion, depending upon the situation. And then I can go for link plays, because I can go for either exceed plays into my rank 4 exceeds, or I can go for things like, you can't go for Mrs. Radiant here in this instance, but I can go for Quirpult Genius because it requires 2 machine monsters. So that, in general, can help me out to some degree. In other situations, not including with the gadgets, you can go for Mrs. Radiant, especially if you're accumulating the tokens from the spell card Ancient Gear Catapult. So there's different things you can use the gadgets for. They float, so if you get a hand that's kind of bricky, you can float with your gadgets, which is decent to some degree. They also help you spam the board and, you know, swarm the field a little bit and not have to rely so bloody much on the fusions, because sometimes the fusions will backfire on you, because sometimes you want a little setup to have, you know, like an Ancient Gear Golem on the field, then go for your fusion play, or have an Ancient Gear Ultimate Pound on the field, then go for your fusion play. That's optimally what you want to do, so you can deck thin and go for your big fusion. But sometimes that takes a little setup, and you can't just rely on Ancient Gear Fusion. You need to make other plays. So the gadgets help work with that, because you have so many rank 4 targets in the deck. Gearbox, Gear Frame, Wyvern, which is nice. When the nice thing about Wyvern is when it's normal or special summon, so you'll get a search off of it. So you go Gadget, Special, Search, go to a rank 4 play, and go from there. You can go for a Gear Gano X. If they ghost over it, so be it. But at least you'll get your search off still. So you have different ways you can go for rank 4 plays in the deck very, very easily. And in addition to that, you can also, you know, do different plays. So I like the gadget engine. You can run different engines, but I like the gadgets. They've really helped in this deck throughout time. Let's continue onwards now. Next we got your 3 Gear Town, which is definitely staple in the deck. And I do like the 1 Terraforming in addition to be able to search it out, because it's very essential that you want to pop your Gear Town, get your special summons off, and things of that nature. So we run the 3 Gear Town, the 1 Terraforming, as well as 3 Ancient Gear Catapult, which is really essential to the deck to pop your Gear Town, which is the main thing you want to usually pop, because you want to have Catapult engraved, pop your Gear Town, and go to town, pretty much. That was not supposed to be a pun, but it worked out that way. So the 3 Ancient Gear Town, the 3 Gear Town, and the 1 Terraforming is what I like in the deck. Along with the Ancient Gear Catapult, I like to run the 2 Foolish Burial Belongings, which is literally staple in the deck by now, I think. Because the ability to deck thin, number 1, and the ability to set up in the grave for Ancient Gear Catapult is very nice. So this is the ratio I like. The 2 Foolish Burial Goods, the 2 Ancient Gear Catapult. It works out very nicely. Let's continue onwards. Next we run 2 Ancient Gear Fortress. I like this as a 2 of. I've never been a fan of it as a 3 of. I've seen people run it as a 1 of, and I understand that, but a 2 of I think is the perfect match, because you don't want to see it all the time, and you want to see it, but you don't want to get too many of them on the field. You don't want to get a handful of 2 of these in your opening hand, because it's kind of not that good. But you want to see it sometimes, you know, often, but not all the time. It's not essential to the deck and what it does, is what I'm trying to say. But 2 Ancient Gear Fortress, very essential to the deck to some degree, but not completely essential. It's not the main focus of what the deck does. It's just a nice cherry on top. Next we have the 2 Ancient Gear Fusion, which hopefully this goes down in price for you guys out there that want to pick them up. I think right now they're going for $20 plus. But this card is really, really, really good in the deck. And I've seen a couple people run this as a 3 of. I don't like it as a 3 of. I like it as a 1 of or a 2 of. That is all. If you run it as a 1 of, you can cut 1 Ancient Gear Golem out of the deck probably. But that's all you'll be able to do. And free up for maybe traps or hand traps like Ghost Ogres, Ghost Ashes, whatever you want to do. But I like this as a 2 of, because it's pretty much, to some degree, if you have your Golem or your Pound out in the field, this pretty much becomes Shaddoll Fusion, which is really nice. And you're easily able to get these out on the field by ignoring their summoning conditions through Ancient Gear Catapult, which you can easily send to grave, pop a card. You know where this is going from here. So I like this ratio right here of the 2 Ancient Gear Fusions. So 2 Ancient Gear Fusions, that's all I've ever wanted. I like it as a 2 of in the deck. Next we have some other fusion cards I run in the deck. 1 Overload Fusion and 1 Power Bond. Power Bond is good for just when you're trying to go for OTKs. I've thought about cutting these out of the deck because we have Ancient Gear Fusion and Ancient Gear Hunting Hound. Like, how much fusioning do I want to do? If I was to cut these out, I would either cut them out for Ghost Ogres or 2 Solemn Strikes. Or you could also run Ghost Dash. So hand traps or traps, one or the other. That's what I would essentially cut out if I took these out of the deck. But the one Power Bond I do like. It's nice to have, but you don't want to see it all the time. Overload Fusion, because this deck sets up so much engrave. I mean, yes, you can reborn stuff, but sometimes it's really nice to go for Overload Fusion when you're trying to go for games sometimes. Like, it's really clutch. So I do like the 1 Overload Fusion. You don't have to run it, but I do like it still in the deck. We also run 1 Limit Removal, which helps with the deck and getting over big things, and OTKing. 1 Upstart Goblin. 1 Monster Reborn. Pretty straightforward cards. Deck thinning, OTKing, reborning stuff. Why not? 1 Ancient Gear Fusion of Reborn. I run this in the deck. Now people are going to say, well, why are you running this card? Like, you can't set it the same turn you search it out with Wyvern. And that is true. But it's just a pretty good card overall, I feel like. Once you flip it up and start using it, it becomes a good card. And so I like it as a one-of. It's a nice searchable card, or if you get it in your opening hand, you can set it, and then once you go off a little bit, you can use it. As a one-of, I like it, but I wouldn't run more than 1. And then lastly, I run 1 Solemn Strike, 1 Judgment. Just my small little Solemn Brigade. I was thinking about running Ghost Ash, because I have them now, or Ghost Ogre, but I'm kind of wishy-washy if I should or not. That's up to you to decide how you want to go about the deck building in that department. But this is what I'm running, because once you make your board, you want to protect your board. And Solemn Warning and Solemn Judgment can help you protect your boards. So that's the ratio I went, instead of going for Ghost Ogre or Ghost Dash. I mean, the deck does sometimes like going second, but I put the gadgets in there because the reason for that is you're not always going to be winning the dice roll. I want a balanced deck, not a deck that's just like predicated, oh, if I don't go second, I automatically lose. I want to have some versatility with my deck. That's just the way I like deck building, but that's just me. Next, we got Lily, Skyla, and Winona, my Pokemon girls. And I always carry them for good luck. And my link markers as well. So let's get into the deck, the extra deck. 1 Ancient Gear Megaton Golem. 1 Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. 2 Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. Very good card if you can go into it. 2 Ancient Gear Howitzer, which is your searcher to some degree. Those are your fusions that you run in the deck. They pretty much, you guys, if you play Ancient Gears, you should know what these things do. For your extra deck, 1 Ancient Gear Gigant Giant X. 1 Heavy Armored Train Iron Wolf. You don't have to run this, but I like it. 1 Tornado Dragon for back row removal. 1 Castell for popping and floating, spinning things back. 1 Utopia the Lightning, and 1 Utopia just for whatever. I still like it in the deck. 2 number 50, is it 95 or 59? I can't read upside down. 159 Crooked Cook. It helps you pop things, which is really nice. And lastly, I run 1 Corpult Genius and 1 Mrs. Radiant, along with 1 Ancient Gear token in the deck. So that is the extra deck in a nutshell. It's pretty straightforward. You have some link monsters in case you need to go for them, which you can go for them easily. You easily can get tokens out through different means. One thing one friend was suggesting to me is actually running Scapegoat in the deck. And you may say, well, why would you run Scapegoat? Well, it helps you go for, Mrs. Radiant, and if Mrs. Radiant dies, that's, okay. You'll get something back from the grave from it. So that's the nice thing. So I've seen different players play the deck differently, and I completely understand that mentality. Personally, this is the way I like playing it. It's worked well for me. Just playing it in casual play, and just playing it in general, because it's a good, solid, just roguish deck if you want to take to tournament and have fun with it for the evening. It's not a bad deck. I've built a lot worse decks in my years, I guess you could say, like Egyptian gods, but this deck actually has consistency, search power, and everything. It's a lot better than it was a year and a half ago before the structure deck came out. I'll say that. But in a nutshell, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you took something away from it, and hope this was helpful if you're trying to upgrade your Ancient Gear deck or figure out how to build an Ancient Gear deck. And until next time, guys, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, and I'll see you all next time. Good luck dueling to all of you, and hope you guys enjoy the deck profile, and if you did, please leave a thumbs up down below.